Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Modern Day Podcast. Today's episode was brought to you by Skillshare. You can use my link, skl.sh/moderndayjames to get 2 free months when you sign up. It was also brought to you by Audible. You can use my link, audibletrial.com/moderndayjames to get a 30-day free trial when you sign up for that. And it's also brought to you by my premium tutorials on Gumroad. Head to gumroad.com/moderndayjames if you want to get some art education. And last but not least, it's brought to you by the lifeblood of the channel, my Patreon subscribers. Head over to patreon.com/moderndayjames if you want to get those Gumroad tutorials I just mentioned at a discounted price, if you want to get group lessons, or if you'd even like to get private lessons from me. I had the opportunity to sit down with 3 members of the awesome band Moontooth. Their new record, Crux, is available for streaming on iTunes and Spotify, and you can purchase it at moontoothny.bandcamp.com. They'll be going on tour with Animals as Leaders and The Contortionists starting May 19th. You can check back on their Facebook page for their tour dates. With that being said, let's have a listen to their first single from the new record, Trust. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guests of Moontooth. We have Nick. We have, let me get the cameras right. We have Nick, John, and Vin. Welcome, guys.
Yo, what up?
What's going
Thanks for
on?
having us.
Hey, thanks so much for coming. How's everybody doing today?
Great.
Doing?
Better now that we have whiskey in front of us.
All right, good.
Pretty hungover, dehydrated, but swell.
Yeah, I heard last night we were talking before the podcast that you saw Avengers Endgame.
That was this morning.
Oh, that was this morning.
Last night I drank my head off because I do that from time to time, but also a side goal was to like severely dehydrate myself. So in the morning I wouldn't have to pee too much because I have a really small or large prostate, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Let's really get into this.
God damn.
Let's start.
Well,
I had a lot of questions about the band, but first I wanted to ask about your prostate. How is it doing?
Well, it's crazy because I thought we'd make it at least 2 minutes before we got on my prostate, but
No, it's fine. This is actually where I want to direct the podcast. Are there legit prostate concerns, or is this facetious prostate concerns?
honestly, like I'm starting to think I need to go to the doctor because I pee so much. Like that's okay. So this relates to band
Gotta
shit.
keep an eye on that.
In the van, I'm always the bottle peer. Like I'm constantly peeing.
Oh my God.
Doesn't that mean, it's like I have the power of the internet in my pocket. And not once have I looked up what does it mean when you pee too much. But I think it means
because the results are going to be like you're dying.
Big old prostate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is possible that you either have a really big prostate, or it could be that I don't know if you're drinking a lot of coffee. Are you drinking a lot?
I do drink a lot of coffee. I mean, I guess I do drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah,
but,
tour is just caffeine, alcohol,
Yeah.
back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Next tour, I'm just gonna be like, listen, guys, somebody's gotta take one. Somebody's gotta stick their finger up my butt. I need you to dig
Check
around
me
and
out.
check it out.
Need some
Okay.
relief.
That's how you know that you're in a true band is when one of your bandmates gives you penetrates you and gives you a prostate exam.
Yeah.
Speaking of tours,
That's how Fleetwood Mac broke up. Actually.
oh my God.
I should have slept more.
No. It's perfect. So speaking of tours, you guys just did the tour with Mark Morton from Lamb of God.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
freaking awesome.
Thanks.
Tell us about that. How was it?
It was awesome. It was, the go-to answer I have for friends and family is that it was amazing, but it was grueling because the other two bands were in a tour bus. We were not in a tour bus, so we bounced from New York to Chicago to Colorado to LA, in a few days. So it was, never getting out of the van type of tour.
Oh my God.
But obviously, yeah, I mean, it was amazing. We met Mark when Machine brought him in to do pre-pro on the new record, and like we became friends. I feel like, you know, and we're not like as close as I'm sure his real close friends are, but like we became like, bros by the end of it. So we didn't expect, any type of offer from him after that was all said and done. So when we got the call to do his tour for his new album, it was really exciting, and he's just a real down to earth good dude.
That's awesome.
Very genuine guy for sure.
Yeah. That's so awesome. And did you guys did you guys happen to you mentioned Machine and Machine Shop. Did you guys happen to record the new album there at Machine Shop in
No, basically like Machine came in knowing we had no label, no budget really, but was into the band and like really liked just what he heard of the direction and kind of like the potential in the band as being like this kind of crazy techie metal band with like a soulful, talented, real singer. He was the one to be like kind of get the ball rolling with us, we'll figure out label and stuff. We'll figure that out later, we just, when he wanted to get the whole process started, so he booked pre-production with us with Mark Morton. He called us one day and was like, how would you feel if we brought Mark Morton in to do pre-production?
Do it.
And then essentially because
how would you feel about it?
We were kind of doing this on the hopes of a budget to come later. The idea and because he learned through meeting us a couple times that our drummer Ray owns a studio and is a very skilled engineer. The plan became pre-pro. You do all the recording of the instruments, and we'll meet back up.
Okay.
And so because we to go down to Austin where the Machine Shop is now would have been a lot of money, and not to mention taking off work for a month and stuff. So it wasn't really in the cards. It would have been amazing, but it ended up just being the pre-pro at Mark's in Richmond.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I have so many questions, and I feel like I jumped the gun quite a bit. So I want to go way, way back to just how the whole project started. First of all, I need to butter you guys up because the new album is amazing. By the way, everybody check it out.
Thank you.
It's one of the most unique albums that I've heard in metal in a very long time, and I think I think more people need to hear it. I think people are definitely hearing it. But before we get down that rabbit hole, how did the band start? What was the inception? What was maybe the what was your mindset going into it? Did you have this vision when you started? Because for those of you that haven't listened to the band, it's sort of this fusion of this southern rock, blues, soulful feel, like you said, but with badass sort of like Mastodon-esque metal
and riffs.
Yeah.
Lots of riffs.
And it's absolutely amazing. And what was the inception of the band?
So I mean, me and Ray have been playing music together since we were 13. We met in middle school, immediately started playing in bands together. Our band became, by the time we were 15 or 16, became Exemption, which was like, we played shows together.
I was just about to say, I'm pretty sure we should,
that was like how we learned how to do this and cut our teeth, from playing backyard shows to playing bars. Like I have pictures of us, even before that band, as like 13-year-old kids playing this dive bar in Massapequa with the owner is like standing on the stage just grilling all the little kids. Like, I don't even know how we got away with it. It was like this kind of dirty bar that like I'm sure people do go to just like do blow in the bathroom, and there's like all these 13-year-old kids playing in there. So we were like, our whole lives we were doing that.
Yeah, the 13-year-old kids are paying for the tickets and doing what they have to do, where they go out and sell tickets to their little friends and bring
it wasn't even on that level. It was kind of just like we did all that stuff too, but that was just like I walked in with like probably my demo, like, hi, can I play a show here? And they were like, okay, as long as like your parents are here or whatever. But yeah, there were a pack of like 13, 14-year-olds in there
doing pixie sticks in the bathroom.
Yeah, right. I remember our bass player at the time, Matt, was grounded and hopped out of his second story window because it was like around the block from my parents' house, and he was my neighbor. And we just kind of were like, you play bass, and he was like, I don't have a bass, and we're like, you play bass, and that was kind of he had to start in a band playing gigs. Anyway, like he snuck out, and in the middle of the gig, his dad just showed up and was like, yanked him out of there.
Wait, in the middle?
Not in the middle of our show, but before we went on, when whoever else was playing at the time, and then like our Tom, who ended up being Exemption, me and Ray just like played the set. It was like on that level of like babies doing this. But we took that up till we were 21. By the time that came around, we were like a 3-piece for a long time. We put out 3 records with our buddy Tom Moran, who is still an amazing singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
And he basically decided to leave because he just wasn't going in the same direction musically as us.
Okay.
He was going more in that direction.
And this was still when you guys were Exemption?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at that, we kind of saw it. I saw it coming for a while. People, you grow up together, and sometimes you just kind of see when that crossroads happens and people are going in different directions. So I kind of saw it coming for a while. And basically at that band practice, he's told us, we all like hugged and cried a little bit.
Yeah.
And then me and Ray just started working on Stormpill, which is one of the songs on the EP.
Yep.
And we just started immediately writing music and kind of being like, all right, well, that's over, but I'm not done playing music with you, all right?
Yeah.
Are you? Like, no, okay, cool. And then, we announced that we did a big last show at the Charleston in Brooklyn. And not long after that, I've already been playing in a band with John for years. And
let's talk about that. How did you come into the picture?
So I started playing I always played when I was younger. Actually, here's a funny little side note. So when I was much younger, me and my buddies in high school, one of which is Paul Motese, who did our album artwork.
It's awesome.
We played in a band, and I sang in that band, and it was kind of like, it was metalish, but like at the time I was a big fan of The Used.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was a little emo boy, and I screamed like that too, way more than actually singing. And I think I was just like still kind of on the in the neighborhood of puberty, so
yeah.
I started to lose like the ability to scream, and which is probably just bullshit. But this is what happened. We finally played a show, and my stage fright was so bad that I quit the band on stage. I went to my buddy Matt, my guitar player. I was like, I can't do this, man. I'm having a panic attack up here. Yeah. So then I stopped, which is so funny now because I'm like the exact opposite now. Like, yeah. I've literally, the things I've done, I've put a plunger on my face like mid-show. Granted, I bought it and I hid it in the bathroom for him, but the crowd didn't know that, But so that's how I got started. Didn't play for a while. Years later, I started playing drums. Actually, kind of the same way you were saying with your buddy. The same friends said, we need a drummer, learn how to play drums. So I just kind of started playing, and then years later, I met my friend Derek, who played keys on a track called Motionless in Sky, and he had a band called Rice Cultivation Society. I started playing drums in that band, and the way I met Nick and Ray was Rice was playing. We were playing with Exemption in the Bitter End in the city.
Okay,
and it was just Derek on guitar and me on drums, and it was like really brilliant stuff. Derek's an amazing songwriter. It was like kind of indie mathy stuff a little bit, but he's like, you're gonna fucking love this band, Exemption. They're gonna be your new favorite band, and I had to watch Exemption and watch what Nick and Ray do for the first time and just be like, what the fuck? And then I had to follow that and play on Ray's kit. Yeah. So I was just like, well, fuck me.
It's always a terrible feeling when you're confronted. You play a show or play whatever, and then you see another band. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah. I mean, I loved it, but I was also just like, what the fuck? What am I gonna do right now? I should just say like, Derek, take this one on your own. but yeah. So I played, and that was. I remember it was that night. You were like helping us load out, and I think you had said like, yeah, I think I'm gonna be playing some guitar with you. Nick joined Rice. Those were the first tours that I had gone on. And then, I loved Exemption. Like, everybody, like, look that shit up. It's, like, brilliant shit. It's so good. But when Tom had left, I sent Nick this long message and just, like, basically saying, like, listen, I know I was born for this. Like, I am the guy. It's not even a question. Like, I'm your singer. And
yeah, it's like, I know you're going to have to do what you got to do, but I'm the guy.
That's awesome.
I remember it was like, and worded much more politely and respectfully.
You can't deny that though. When he comes at you and he's like, I'm the dude for you, you can't just ignore that.
Well, I met you as a drummer, but then John had a solo EP, which was called Son Abernock at the time. And I didn't even know he sang or played anything else. And so he gave it to me, and it just floored me out. Like the sound of his voice and then all the layers of vocals that he had done, and just on this DIY recording where it's like super impressive. I mean, and what we were doing with the old band is what we wanted to continue to do with Moontooth, but even you know, I mean, you're always trying to make things better and elevate them. Is like, let's have like the heaviest, gnarliest music, but kind of vocals that will not make it not metal, where you can't like define it as metal.
Exactly.
And you know, because we like vocal melodies and catchy songs. Just as much as we like brutal stuff.
As you should if you're in a band and you play metal all the time. Don't just listen to metal all the time. There's other things.
Right, of course not. Yeah.
Anyway, then Vin and I shared the stage. Vin, how did you get involved? Now that's what I want to know.
So after you and I were in a project together, you showed me how to play some fast riffs.
I'm sorry.
So I took that knowledge and I went to the Last Exemption show in Brooklyn, and I didn't even know John at that point, so we could have been like next to each other and had no idea who each other were, whatever. So I went to the Exemption show. Fast forward a few months, we're in the middle of the summer, and I had a house party at my dad's place, and I invited Nick and Ray over, and you know, a few beers in, I was just like, yeah, so what's going on? You know, like I was like, I would love to jam with you guys or whatever, and they were like, yeah, absolutely. We, you know, conversation exceeded like what our goals were as far as like where we saw ourselves in the future. And I think I was really drunk, and I was like, I want to be like Dave Grohl, man. I want to conquer the world.
Yeah.
So still in pursuit of that, obviously, but
it takes time.
Yeah. So after that party, you know, a few months went by, and I was playing in this band, Give Up the Goods, for a little while, and Nick like hit me up and was just like, hey, what are you doing on like Tuesday morning? And I was like, I don't know, man. You know, what's up? He's like, I'll be over. You know, let's work on some shit. And that's kind of how it started. And he showed me a little bit of Storm Hill, and I like rehearsed that for like a bunch of time because it was super hard to play for me at the time. Like,
I was just about to say, your riffs are real. Don't even get me started. I don't want to get started, but they're so technical. It's got to be, you know, one thing that I know from playing stage and playing technical live, it's like you're trying to have fun playing a live show, but it feels like doing a math equation when you're sitting on stage.
Yeah.
And it's got to be, you know,
to learn Nick's
it's not very relaxed
riffs,
on stage.
Yeah.
To learn Nick's riffs, you have to just like make your brain feel like you just had a lot of caffeine.
Okay.
Like I have to like psych my brain up to like get on that level to be like, okay, like this is the speed it needs to be at.
Yep.
But yeah, so going from that and then going to the first band practice, and that's where I had met John. So I didn't even know John, but it was like this instant like vibe, and it just felt really good. And he reminded me of like a good friend that I had earlier in life, and we've had this conversation where, you know, I reminded him of a friend that he had in the past that they had a really good relationship. Spooky, like, so it just like it felt right. As you know, cliche as that sounds, but the vibe was just fucking perfect. Yeah. And you know, since then it's been like hundreds of shows and a few albums and crazy life experiences, you know. But,
we jumped right in. Like we started the band, they met at the first practice, and then it was like 100 shows in the first year.
It's like, I hope I don't hate this guy.
There was definitely something that was very much, I mean, Nick and Ray's music made me feel this way, that like, all right, this is something big. This is something real happening. And the way that we all kind of came together, that just like, there was definitely like a magic to it, to the point of just like, oh yeah, this is gonna work. You know, like I know it, I can feel it, the way that I feel about these guys, the sounds that they make, what they do to me, and like from day one it's been like that, and I still feel that way. Yeah. As
an outside observer, I feel that way too. Honestly, like just listening to it hits all the right things. One, the fact that there's been no crazy member changes. Granted, before, you know, when you guys were Exemption, that's a little bit different, but there's always these bands that cycle through so many different members. Even our old project, Painted in Exile, cycled through members. And I think there's something to that core group. You know, when you have that core group, the message stays clearer. Mm-hmm. And then
it's hard to imagine it if anybody left that we would keep it as Moontooth and just replace them.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, I think one of the most impressive things is, again, the sound is so different. And that you don't just draw from other metal bands. And I think that's what's separating it. So let's, you know, go into that realm. Where's, you know, what are your influences, Nick?
Well, I do want to add just that the part of that, like keeping it the four of us, is that I think that it's always just been about between us, like a real kind of like brutal kind of honesty about what the expectations are, and you know, just that communication, you know what I mean? Like, and it was always the type of thing where it was like, the reason that we, I think, made it through that first year or two and even beyond where shit gets tough is that it was always communicated that we all wanted the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it never made sense for anybody to leave because we always communicated, okay, like we all want this, we all want the same thing. This is what I think it takes. This is what I think it takes. This is what I think it takes. And it's like, if it was ever a time where there was a clashing, all it took was just talking about it, because at the end of the day, you kind of knew everybody was there for the right reasons. And that's kind of why I think it ended up being the four of us, and why, you know, even if it was like a little bit difficult in the beginning to get it where we wanted it to be, it was just like, it felt right. Like the connection on a personal level felt right, you know, and it always felt right musically too. But that part is hard, is that part takes work, but it was more like we just gelled as people and what we wanted out of life. More importantly than you like the same bass player as I do, and you know, you want to play with the pick, I want you to play with the fingers, I don't want you to do this, you know.
I think in so many ways being in a band is like being in a relationship. So you
absolutely
open communication, all those things are so crucial.
Yeah, all those same principles apply.
But it's with multiple people, not just one other person.
It's a very polygamous relationship.
Yeah, it really is. You can make so many jokes about it, but it is also very seriously just, it is a fucking relationship.
Yeah.
But I would say that, like, of all the things it takes for a band to make it, you know, talent, you know, material that's got heart and it's honest. There's all these things that, you need, but like perhaps the most important thing is have your will set. Like if it's four people, you know, like finding four people who are down for the cause, like that's the most formidable thing a band could have, is just like a unified purpose and a commitment and devotion to it. If you got that, the rest is fucking gravy, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard nowadays, especially for me, like as somebody that plays music, it is hard to find people that are very dedicated, that want to spend the time,
and that you want to be around.
Yeah, that too. Part of the reason why I personally gravitated towards art, I was like, I can't get a band together. I'm just going to do something that I can do here in the studio. But yeah, I mean, talk about like the dynamics of being in a band, you know, being stuck in a tour bus all the time. That's got to be put so much pressure on your just interpersonal relationships, on the creative process.
Yeah, it'll be like the petty things that annoy you about another person. But, you know, for us, it's like we've worked through a lot of the big picture things that could really ruin a relationship. And I think when there's never been anything too dramatic, but if, you know, one of us was upset with another one, and you know, it quickly became obvious that there is no way we're going to continue doing this if we are going to harbor resentment about anything. Yeah. And just fucking spit it out. Let's yell at each other for 5 minutes, and then we'll hug and be drinking, crying, and saying how much we love each other later. And it's like, it's okay.
It's exactly like a relationship.
It is. It really is. And, and I think that was the thing in the beginning that felt the most right, where it was kind of like, you know, we started with no expectations really. Like, there's of course always like we're going to take over the world. That's the feeling that you kind of like keeps you going every day. But like when you're just driving up to play a party in New Jersey and then like do some bar, you don't have like expectations. You kind of know where it's at. Yeah. But knowing that like we all were in it for the right reasons was, I think, the thing that propelled us to here, you know, to the point where, okay, like now we're doing real tours and stuff like that. It was because we trusted in each other. I think if there was a moment of like, I don't really trust this guy to like stick with us, or that I don't trust myself to be able to deal with this person in a couple of years, it would never have gotten anywhere near, you know. And then the lineup changes, things would start, and then once that starts, it could really derail you, you know, because that shit's a bummer. You know, if anybody left now, the idea of starting over with someone new is terrifying. Because it's like, just the amount of work and hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, starting from scratch would seem impossible, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm 29 now. To like, you know, God forbid something happened where it's like, okay, well, let's start all over again. It's like, I don't know if I have the will to do that. You know, like it's, you know, especially to, you know, the years that we've been together, to see how far we've come in that time, to go back to ground zero of playing to, you know, whoever, like 4 people at AMH or something like that. Like, I don't know if I could do that again.
We wouldn't have the gusto that we did back then, for sure. That's something I think about, too, because when we played those shows, we came at it like fucking Wolverines. Like, I remember some of the early Vitus gigs. It might have been the first time we played Vitus. I remember I ran into, like, the bar room. So there was maybe, like, 10 people in the showroom, and in the bar room was just the 2 bartenders. And I ran in there during an instrumental part, and I ran behind the bar and rummaged through their garbage, and then just started ripping the garbage up with my teeth. And these guys are like these bartenders who are just like cannot be bothered, like really cool dudes, like are looking at me like, who is this fucking
maniac?
It's just like, there's nobody here, kid. What are you eating garbage for? You know what I mean? But like the fact that we had that attitude is just like, I don't care if there's 3 people here. I'm gonna fucking annihilate this place.
Yeah,
that got us through a lot of that, you know, the tough early days stuff.
There's always like that level of like healthy competition where it's like, you know, even not against anyone else, but just against ourselves. Like, all right, like let's make this the best fucking set. You know, people are here. They want to see us. Let's give them one hell of a show that they can't forget us. You know, like let's fucking kill it. And, you know, we try to hype each other up, and like there's 4 of us obviously. And, you know, not every show is going to be your best show. So it's like, but the fact that you know, even I can speak for myself. Like, let's say I'm having a bad show, my monitor mix is shitty, or, you know, my amp's fucked up and it's cutting in and out. I know that I have 3 people, like, right behind me fucking giving it 110%, and I don't have to worry about it, you know? I just have to focus on, like, I'm going to kill it because they're relying on me to kill it, just like I'm relying on them to kill it. Yeah. So we all together, like, 110% the whole time, and no matter where we are, what it sounds like, you're going to get one hell of a show, because chances are we're all going to be on our game, or at least 3/4 of us are going to be on the game. So like, let's go.
Yeah, it's like it's a brotherhood kind of thing, and I don't mean to equate it at all, because obviously it's not anywhere near the same level of risk, but like there is like almost kind of a military thing to it on tour, where it's like if someone's not carrying their weight, you check that person, you know, and you might say it as a joke, but that will resonate, and you know, it just, you make sure that everybody's like, because you're relying on you. I'm literally relying on you to not crash this car, not embarrass us in front of thousands of people. And it goes to everybody, you know. And it's just like you really rely on each other for everything at that point. You rely on each other to eat, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, anyway, you had influences. It was like we weren't done talking about that. I guess.
Doesn't matter, honestly. Like I love when the conversation just meanders to whatever.
It's like, so what bands you guys? No, listen, you got to get out there and you got to give it 110%. Don't worry about the fucking influences.
So you're checking each other's prostates.
I don't really care about the influences. I could tell. No, I'm kidding. I think so much about what makes a band successful, though, is something that makes anybody successful in any creative endeavor, which is, you get those shit sandwiches thrown at you sometimes, and you just kind of work through them, or you just brush them off. Mm-hmm. Like, what shit sandwiches have been thrown at you guys? Sorry for such a stupid question.
No, it's a great question.
I'm sure there's plenty
of shit sandwiches in the shit storm.
So makes you think of Spinal Tap.
It's been a shit buffet. What, Spinal Tap?
They have the album. It's called Shark Sandwich, and it's like, it's only a 2-word review. Shit sandwich. I don't know. I mean,
vans breaking down in the middle of like a
that's
huge
the kind
tour.
of stuff I'm asking for. That's what I want to know.
Check it out. One kind of funny thing about that is that there's a thong.
There's a thong.
This should be. We probably sell a lot of them.
You should merchandising.
Yeah.
I was thinking you'd perform in it.
Merchandising, yeah, that's how we'll advertise.
Whale tail going.
Is that a Spaceballs reference?
Yeah. Merchandising. Moontooth the thong.
All right, I got a good shit. Well, you want to go first?
What I wanted to mention, like, because then they'll be like, "Why did he bring up thongs?" And it was never thong. Okay. What I meant to say is we have a song called "Thumb Spike" on the new album, and there's it's very much like an ode to like rock and roll, like lyrics, just like simple kind of tongue in cheek shit. But there's a verse where it's talking about it's like a love song to rock and roll and the road, basically, and it's talking about the road, saying, "You left me in the pouring rain, you left me in the snow, you left me burning in the desert sun. Now I've got no place to go." These are it's a very general thing to say, but I'm referencing specific times where one time it was a fucking monsoon and the wheel almost fell off, and we were like hiding under this gas station. It was like bullet rain.
Louisiana.
Oh my god.
There was we broke down in the desert in Arizona one time.
That's the worst. I hate Arizona. I'm sorry, Arizona.
We broke down on a mountain, like in like 5 feet of snow, and we were in the van for like, no exaggeration, 5 fucking hours. We just started drinking, and like we made
the darkness in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Your toes were cold, but the whiskey kept your belly warm.
Put all of our clothing on and just started drinking and playing games.
Tell me what Vin just said is a lyric.
What did you say?
Your toes.
The toes were cold, but the whiskey kept our bellies warm.
Got it. Okay, copyright
Yeah.
2019.
If that's not a lyric already, it needs to then be.
Song's
a
called
lyric.
Cold
Sorry.
Toes.
But yeah, so that's kind of a funny thing. What's
I was gonna even speak in just like I have one like actual experience where we were on tour with Astronoid, or my boys in Astronoid, and
nice.
me and our merch guy at the time. We had some really bad fish shawarma in Toronto, and so we're on tour. It's freezing out. It's like, you know, negative 13 degrees or whatever. It's fucking, you know, you're outside and your bones hurt. That's how cold it is. And on top of that, you get food poisoning. And it's not like a day of food poisoning. It's a week of food poisoning, to the point where, you know, you're hurling your guts up and you're in the bathroom like all day long, pounding Pepto-Bismol or whatever else just to like keep you from doing either of those two things for 45 minutes so you could play your set. And it's being in a band is like, you know, you can kind of encounter some of the most challenging things you've ever experienced in your life, because you have a regular day job. Oh, I feel like shit today. I'm going to call out and I'm going to, you know, watch, you know, The Godfather Part 1 and 2, and that's my day. Get some Chinese food and that's it, you know, like, and I'm just going to lay here and be miserable. But if you're on the road, like, we don't cancel shows. We don't miss shows. We do whatever we can to get there and put on the best performance we can do. But like when you're sidetracked with like the flu or food poisoning or something like that, like you're literally feeling like you're going to die, but you're going to get up on stage and perform and try not to shit yourself in front of a room full of people.
And if you do it,
and that's
adds
the
to
only,
performance.
yeah, that's the only job that you can do that. If you're a baseball player, they're not going to let you play, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, being in a band is challenging in that aspect, where it's like, you know, you could miss the show. You could let them go up by themselves and do their own thing, but fuck that. Like, people are going to remember that you didn't show up, you know? But they're going to remember even more that they knew that you had food poisoning and you were about to puke yourself on stage, but you're still, like, fucking going in on it, you know?
This is like turning into like a lot of reiteration of like the same kind of attitude.
That's okay.
But so like, yeah, that he was really fucked up. Him and
John like saved my life. I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah, he was luckily it was an awesome green room with a shower, and Vin was just on a stool with the shower, and I'm just like putting cups of water in there, and he was just but yeah, there's this idea that we have, going back to what I was saying before, like the will to do this with your life, the devotion to it, and then the discipline to do it well. And kind of like what Nick was saying, like, you know, everybody's got a job to do. Like, we're pretty athletic in our attitude with that. Like, you find a fucking way to get it done.
Yeah.
Like the snow mountain thing that I just mentioned, after 5 hours of multiple AAA guys coming, we got a ride in a tow truck and managed to get to a gas station where our friends from the show met us halfway. We piled with the guitars and the bass into their tiny little sedan.
Honda Civic Coupe.
Honda Civic, is that what it was? Yeah.
Just geared up, stacked on top of each other like sardines.
Yeah. And we played the fucking gig. We used their gear and stuff. It wasn't pretty. We were late, but like we made it fucking happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ray showed up to a drum kit that was like a death metal. He was like a 4-piece kit. It was like in rack tom system and like a million cymbals, and he was like, "Oh fuck!" But you had to do it.
Yeah.
We spent the year home recording. We were gonna go out with our good friends Cryptodira for a week.
Yep.
And chomping at the fucking bit to start playing shows again, because we need to fucking play. We make it to the fucking Bronx, and the van breaks down, and not only breaks down, but pretty much just dies on the spot. And we wait all fucking day. They go to fucking Jersey to get. To borrow a van from Fit for an Autopsy. Yep. Those guys saved our ass. But that
Shout
night,
out to Fit for an Autopsy.
That night we you know, instead of, we missed a show in Ithaca. We were never gonna make it there, but we went home to our local like dive like scene show haunt, and we got tacked onto an open mic night, and we played to like a fucking packed room. We had an awesome night. So it's that attitude to like find a way to get it done.
Yeah.
That's what's going to make you stand out too.
Yeah, that resonates with people, because like we have such a strong core of friends and family and just like, you know, fans of the band and the music and stuff like that, that, you know, they're willing to stand behind us because, you know, they believe in what we're doing. And that's really cool too, because, you know, it's the four of us setting the example, but then it's like a whole crew of amazing people that are like right behind us, like willing to help us take on the world, you know. So it's really cool.
Even my friends, I don't know if you guys know them, but it doesn't matter. all my friends listen to your music as well, so it's
cool.
It's awesome stuff.
To add to that shit sandwich, so yeah, we had put $4,000 into this fucking van on the Intronaut tour. It was the only other time we missed a show in Pittsburgh because it broke down on that tour. We were stranded in upstate New York, and basically our friends in Dead Empires had lent us their van because the tour was looping around back to Connecticut or some shit. And we were going to come pick it up. I don't even remember how it all worked out, but we borrowed their van, came back to get their van. They were like, okay, it's going to be like, it basically worked out to be $4,000 to get this van fixed. And we were like, this is a terrible idea, but like we have to go all the way back to California and then back to New York.
Yeah, you need a
And it was like
functional
either
vehicle.
leave this tour, which at the time, and still is like one of the more high profile tours we've done, like with one of the biggest bands that we looked up to and had become, we were like, we're doing this tour. I remember like the day it broke down being like, I don't care if we got to go back to fucking Long Island, get my Honda or my fucking Hyundai. We're going to fucking throw the gear in there. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But like, okay, so now we're 3 years later or 2.5 years later, whatever. We're in the van, finally got some shows after a year of shit sandwiches and like recording the album and amazing things too, but like a lot of
shit
confusing
sandwiches
disappointments and personal things, whatever. So like we're finally going to the gig. All right, we've never played in Ithaca before. This is exciting. Get to the Bronx, no acceleration anymore. Okay, so now we're broken down in the Bronx. We try to turn around, break down in a bus stop in the Bronx.
On a hill, too.
So
like a big
scrambling. Yeah, me and Vin take an Uber to Will Putney's studio to borrow Pat from Fitz van, who like gave it to us for basically next to nothing to use for this little mini tour. So shout out to Pat for that. That was very cool of him.
Thanks, Pat.
And then, so in the meantime, while we're doing that, they're getting a fucking ticket for blocking a bus. It was like a $155 ticket. It was like the universe just being like, nah, fuck you. You thought this was like, okay, you're getting back on track, but
Nope.
being resilient to that stuff is like the key to being in a band. If you want longevity, wear a helmet and just like grow a tough skin and just don't let stuff like that ruin it. I mean, it's going to ruin your day for the most part.
But don't let it ruin the entirety of it.
Yeah, don't let that be the reason. Because if that's going to be the reason that you stop, then don't even bother starting. You know, just do some Weekend Warrior stuff.
Yep.
And because it's like that shit is going to happen and is going to suck. And you're going to think that, oh, I might make like $100 on this weekend thing. Nope. Now your fucking band's like in debt for like a whole new van. But it all worked out in the end, though. You know,
you gotta learn to like not only take the abuse, but like I think kind of like love the abuse. I think we all do in some way. Like the horrible things happening, it sucks, but it's also kind of cool because you feel like life is taking a big old life fist and just right in the face, and then it's a moment for you to just like spit some blood out and look at it and be like, yeah, fucking hit me again. Come on.
It's like you're yelling at the sky, just begging for more at this point.
It's
fuck it.
Anytime you overcome some sort of adversity like that, you feel stronger at the end of it. And by the way, I just want to mention, I'm glad that the shit storms that I asked for actually included a literal shit storm.
there's plenty of those.
Oh yeah,
Talk about like sleeping in people's houses that like literally let their animals shit all over their fucking apartment floor. You know, I mean those literal shit storms.
Oh my god.
There's good with the bad, of course. So it's not all bad, but the bad ones make for good stories.
It's like at least 10% good.
Yeah. All right, so we should talk about the actual music a little bit because it's so cool, and I want to delve deeper into it.
Cool.
So everybody has a different writing process with music. I know when I wrote music, it would be I'd write the guitar part first, and then maybe play it with drums. How do you guys write it? Do you start with vocals? Do you start with guitars? And is there ever a moment? I know you write very technical guitars. Is there ever a moment when you're saying like, "Oh, I'm playing too much. I need to let John have some more room"? Anything like that? I know, especially with technical guitars,
for this record,
easy. Yeah,
for this album that started. I mean, the riff is pretty much God to us. At least, especially me and Ray growing up, it was like the riff is everything.
Yeah.
The rest of the song is important, but like it needs to have like the riff, and like that's. I mean, obviously our tastes broadened as we got older. You know, and I went from metal to just all I would listen to was like the Beatles and Bob Dylan for a couple of years, and like I kind of put it down, but it still is like the most important thing. So more often than not, it's a riff, and then I'll have a riff, or he'll have a riff, or I'll have a whole song musically, or he'll have a whole song musically, or one of them will be 50%, 75%, and we'll come rest of the way there. It used to be that like, okay, like that would start, then we'd figure out the drum part, and then we'd get the bass line together, and then it would be done, and then it'd be like, oh yeah, vocals, John, write some of this crazy shit that we left you no room for. And that's what you hear on Chroma Paragon. Not all of it, but plenty of it. And like, you know, his response to that, which might not have been my response to it, but like was to take the challenge of like, okay, like this is the most dense thing I can write.
Yeah.
Now put vocals on it and make it even more dense and add to the prog element, rather than trying to be like, I'm going to make this accessible and only sing like whole notes over like, you know, the verse and only half notes over the chorus so that it's easy to sing along. It like took it to another level of like when even the vocals are going to be super intricate and over the top.
Okay. Is there a back and forth between you two saying like, oh, you need to calm down on the guitars here? You have to.
No, really. I don't
Especially not on that record. On that record, it was we just kind of all did what we wanted to do on that record. It's very free, that record.
Okay. What about now on the newest?
This was the first time, and this, I mean, part of it.
It's Ghost Riders.
It's all Ghost Riders.
It was, I mean, we did bring in producers for the first time and listen to them for the first time. Most of the time we listened to them. But even before that had been an official thing, we were already kind of in the mindset of like, let's write more memorable songs. Let's leave room for a verse, you know?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, like we were, you know, we wanted to focus it because it was, you know, definitely the most common critique of that record Chroma Paragon that I had heard. But it was more so even if it was the case and I didn't agree and I just wanted to write more dense and crazy shit, I wouldn't have cared what people thought of that record.
Yeah.
But like I too wanted to like focus it. It felt like this amazing pile of raw materials that we hadn't totally put together yet. And that's really kind of what started. And, you know, a lot of the songs like from that album were riffs that had been around for however long and then finally became songs. Then coming after that, it was like me and John lived together for several years. And in that time, we're learning how to write music together. And it just started to become a thing where it was like, okay, rather than finish this song, I'm going to just introduce a part of it to John. Like I have an input, like I like this chord and this chord, and I like this finger picky thing, but like it almost became more enjoyable to not decide anything and be like, okay, here's this thing. And he would start writing, and then I'd be like, okay, like how long till I go to this part? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just start to write with vocals in mind for the first time.
Yeah. And I was going to say, and for you, that must be quite the task of figuring out how to navigate this complex thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting because like in the early days, there wasn't a whole lot of talk. It was just like they'd give me something and I'd be like, all right, let me see what I can do here. And I'd take time with it and come back with something. And that kind of going back to what I said before, everything was clicking pretty well in the writing process. Yeah. And even to this day, there's rarely a time where we say, nah, not that or whatever. You know what I mean? It's a very unusual thing. So that's another thing where, you know, like the mojo's good. But yeah, so to like back then and even now, I'm sure, I assume it will stay this way, is like whenever I get like a riff from the guys, like if you're talking to me on a day that there's a new riff in the Google Drive and I have that to work on and you're talking to me, just know that I'm not paying attention to you. I'm like my head that whole day is just like thinking about the riff. I'm thinking about, okay, when can I like sneak away from whatever I'm doing and go work on it, and it's just like all of a sudden my mind's an arrow and I'm just like in the zone, and you're just kind of like sitting with it, seeing what it stirs up in me, and like and I love it. It's just anytime it's like Christmas when I get music from these guys. Awesome. And it makes this, sometimes this stuff comes so quickly. Yeah. It's just like, all right, this is coming through me. I'm not making this up. Yeah. You know, it's coming from somewhere else, and I'm along for the ride, and I gotta keep it flowing. And then but yeah. It's really
I think on this record you're really hearing a real band, you know, that like had the time and the years of ups and downs and shows and writing together, so that like we were really writing these songs together and making these decisions together. It wasn't kind of like one person just coming into a finished product and doing what they can with it. It was like, okay, everything was discussed painstakingly. Especially by the time we got to Machine and Mark, we'd already talked about all that shit so much, and then they were coming in and throwing a wrench in all the stuff that we had been talking. But it was a good wrench. It was like, you know, you should cut this riff here. It's just, you don't need it. And it just being like, what? Like, that's the part though where the drums do this, and that's so important to me. Yeah. And then you hear it back, and you're like, no. And then you hear it back again, and you're like, yeah, you're right. That's probably makes more sense to get to the verse already. You kind of played that too many times, but it takes someone else that's not you in the band married to it and taking it so fucking personally all the time to tell you that, and for you to swallow your ego and make your ego small so that the thing that you're making together can be better.
I think that's probably the biggest growth as any sort of band, is that one, you can take objective opinions and not get all upset about them and freak out. And two, one thing I've noticed as a shortcoming on my behalf is not writing as a collective unit, partially because I'm writing on my own, but I think one thing I noticed in your growth from the previous album to this album is that it feels more cohesive. It feels like you work together. It feels like there was a lot more communication. I know, John, you shine a lot on this record, and it feels like, it does feel like you worked together. And one of the things in art that I've come to learn is this sort of balance of detail and of complexity. And in art, they call it rest areas, so areas where you're not drawing as much. And they refer to it as 70% rest, 30% detail. And I've tried applying that to music more and more, not trying to overburden the listener with all my notes that I can play on the guitar, because you can play guitar fast. And I think you guys kind of hit the nail right on the head with that. And I love it.
Thanks. Yeah.
No problem.
That was kind of the goal, was like, write a song that can be accessible, but don't give up on your like code of ethics musically, like where you're like, I'm not going to phone anything in just because I want to have an accessible song. I'm not going to write a riff that, even, my grandmother would say isn't heavy, just so I can get on the radio. I want to still be challenged musically, but I want to be challenged artistically more than anything. I want to be forced to like make, I don't know, it's hard to explain, because accessible to me is a word that would have made me throw up when I was like 20, that would have been like, I'm not going to use that word to just, I don't care about that, but I always did really want that, just to write things that like anybody could hear, and it could be their anthem, or they could be singing along and jumping and dancing along at a show. And, I never wanted it to be like impressive to muso, acrobatic musician type people, but more the challenge of like, I want to make sure I'm getting better with every new song or every new album or riff or whatever. And that came from me and Ray growing up and being like, check out this fucking crazy thing, and being like, oh shit, all right, fuck, all right, but check out this fucking crazy stupid thing that I wrote, and then being like, taking that to the point where it wasn't even enjoyable anymore, and then being like, okay, like what do I really want out of
Behold the Octopus or whatever they're going
diving through all of that stuff.
No offense.
No, I definitely had that record and listened to it and went like, wow, but then I don't know, it's just getting into like you said before, like getting into every type of music and being like, I want to cherry pick my favorite things, but somehow make it all work together.
I also like one thing too is with the stuff that was definitely like reined in and the more catchier stuff on this record, we all had we liked the idea of getting a little bit more accessible, but the purest thing that happened was the fact that like these riffs and these choruses would happen, and it naturally developed in a very catchy way. I think if we were just flat out being like, all right, well, you know what, we did Chroma Paragon, let's be more accessible with this, I don't think it would have worked. It was just like Nick would be like, check out this riff. I'm like, oh, that's like a badass classic rock riff. I'm like, I think I'm gonna do a really like a repeating, a chorus on this, and it felt good and it felt natural, which will work. But I think if we were trying to be like, all right, well, what's opened up like Idiot's Guide to Songwriting, then it would have been fucking shit.
At the end of the day, we're playing these songs millions of times throughout like rehearsal and shows and band practice or whatever. So there's not a riff on this record that none of us don't like. We all love this record, and at the end of the day, we want to make music that we love, and we just hope that other people love it as much as we do too. So
I really naturally like major key stuff.
It's
one of the big bands that did that for me was Torch, actually, which is they're like on the sludgier stoner side, but a lot of their stuff was major keys. It sounded like, to me, it sounded like if Foo Fighters were playing in like drop G or something at times, not all the time, but it was like such an eye-opening thing. It was like, wow, like major key is almost heavier than minor key.
It can be so heavy. Actually, that's what inspired the Revitalized riff.
Okay, you guys did a ton of that stuff. All those colors that can be used.
Not enough, but yeah.
Well, you'd also just like grow up on metal. Like I went through every genre of metal, from death metal to grind and sludge and doom and every single like thing. I went through all of it and just kind of, I have my bands I like from every genre, but you know, so much of it is just in minor key or in like Slayer key, and it's just kind of like
Slayer key,
you know, it's you've heard it so much of it that when you finally heard somebody hit like a major third over like a really low note, it was like, whoa, that sounds, I could like meditate to this. This sounds like so beautiful, but it's still satisfying that heavy gut warmth feeling you get from like a big riff. That's like, you know, like it just hit such a important. It was just like that lightning bolt moment. And so a lot of the stuff on the album is in major key. Like Trust is, I mean, you could size it up in different ways, but a lot of it is in major. I'm thinking in what the major key would be. And that's a big part of how the writing is developed, is starting to think more in chord progressions. Even if the riff is super notey, I'm still thinking of like, what is the movement here? You know, is it a 1 to 3 to 4? And then not that like I'm set out to write to a certain structure, but like, if you're looking at the big picture more of like, what is the song really implying in the chord progression? Even if it's like a million notes, there's still like a movement here. Yeah. And, you know, trying to use that information to like inform the next section of the song to make sure that, you know, it moves, you know, and just trying to think of it more big picture. I think that was like a big, like we said with the vocals, leaving room for the vocals, everything was written more with the big picture in mind and less like immediate satisfaction of like, oh, this riff's crazy. Just it doesn't fit with that one. Just put like a fucking another riff in there. Okay, cool. Now it fits. You know. Yeah, as Finn McKenty referred to it, the riff salad, which is a mistake we can all fall into really easily. Yeah. Yeah. And just there's because that temptation's always there. You know. Yeah. And like you said, like it's probably very natural to feel like I need to just put so much into this to get somebody to pay attention. I think it's a natural thing of anytime you study something like art or an instrument or whatever, you're sitting there and spending so much time developing that technical skill that at the end of it, you're like, oh wait, now I'm supposed to not use it? Now I'm supposed to calm down. And I think it's almost like an unlearning process. Sure. And on top of that, there's this process that I've noticed with a lot of bands where it's not just you developing as yourself as a musician, but it's you developing as a band and how you guys can complement each other rather than try to talk over each other. It's kind of the same thing like with the dynamic personally, is like you have to be not selfish. Yeah, exactly. It would be easy for me to be like, guys, every song needs a fucking 24 bar solo and it's the only way I could do this. and then you know, but that would be just for me and as many like for the few guitar nerds that would be into that. Most people would just be like, this is boring as fuck. I don't want to like listen to these long ass solos in every single song. I mean, you know, it's just, or it'd be go for anything. Like if John was like, I'm only going to sing in this crazy range doing this Christina Aguilera runs on every single fucking I kind of hate when singers do that Christina Aguilera runs over it. I'm like, I hear them doing it on the national anthem when I'm watching hockey and I'm like, please stop. Yeah. I'm like, just sing the notes that are in the thing. Just being tasteful. I think it comes down to, tasteful was a big goal. Like you mentioned a lot of catchy parts. Did you guys have, like you mentioned just naturally developing to that? Was there any resistance to that? Was there, you said it wasn't entirely conscious, but was there some part of you that was like, oh, we want to make this like a banger chorus and we just wanted to catch? You mean like resistance within the four of us? Or was there any resistance? Because I know in metal there's always this tendency to be like, well, if we're catchy, it's not heavy. Yeah. I don't think so. Well, the interesting thing is like from the get-go, and I think this might be my own perspective because I am a metal fan, but not nearly like these guys, and I liked metal probably more so when I was younger, but even still not as much as those guys. So I'm coming from a little more of a rock and blues background, but my kind of opinion of us has always been like we're a rock and roll band, you know what I mean? And it's only been more so with the years. Like even with Chroma Paragon and all these crazy riffs, it's like, it's prog metal and stuff like that's proggy, sure, but like see us live and like tell me that's not a rock and roll band. You know what I mean? Like it's, you know what I mean? It's just like balls out, you know. Yeah. Energetic live show. There are times like I would hear maybe the chorus of All Angles the first time, I'd be like, that's gonna be in one of my songs. That's like so poppy. But that thought would always immediately be followed by like, what are you, 16? Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is, and like, I also, when a lot of the times, like the things that John will bring to the table, where at first I'm like, wait a second, hold on, what are we talking about here? You know, those are always the things that end up being like my favorite things and everybody else's favorite things too. You know, and I have to like remember that and just be like, you are not always the best judge of what should go into this part or that part, you know, and just trusting that, you know, if I'm trusting my own muse, I got to trust that he can follow his too, and find the result that's necessary, you know.
Also trust in the fact that there's a reason we're together, and like, you know, all right, we're supposed to be working together with this, you know.
We definitely don't police each other's musical choices, but we got to a point where we could pretty comfortably be like, do that again, or try something else.
I've also found that like, I'll throw out a name here, but when we were on tour with Fit for an Autopsy, their bass player Blue, who's one hell of a dude, he was always like, are you guys gonna play this song? And like, that song off of Chroma Paragon, Chroma, was like one of the more catchier songs that we were playing. And I was like, here's a guy that, you know, loves death metal and blast beats just like I do, but he loves, his favorite song is our catchiest song on the record.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of Moontooth being like, you know, we're a rock and roll band of essentially of metalheads and of guys that like blues too, but also like we're the rock and roll that like the deeper side of metal can get behind, because it's like, you know, we're very genuine to what we're doing, and we're not like corny poppy. We're just catchy because the melody is sick, you know, that kind of thing. Or there's riffs there that are sick. I don't know, like growing up in our local scene or whatever, I just got tired of bands that, you know, were only like, people were just waiting for the breakdown to start. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you would time it out. You'd be like, okay, when is it coming? Oh yeah,
it's like
we all come from that.
The whole crowd is dead, and then the whole crowd is dead, and then you hear like, you know, the fucking China hit, and the people just start launching themselves everywhere.
The guys outside like flick their cigarettes, like, hold on, bro,
I'll be right back. I gotta go punch this 13-year-old kid. You know, like,
hold on, they just cued the Family Guy quote. I have to go. Breakdown.
So, but like, you know.
You know what I'm talking about, right? They would always do shit like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're the rock and roll band that like all of metal and death metal can kind of get behind, as long as they're open to, you know, checking it out.
I think that's what I've noticed too. One, the blues influence in the rock and roll comes out so hardcore, and that's why it's so interesting and so awesome. But also, people that aren't into metal, this is the perfect gateway. So you have this great sound that not only is really appealing to metalheads that are, you know, like myself, that are into, you know, deep into it, you know, but people that maybe haven't been exposed to it, you know, people haven't been like, yeah.
I mean, I think like one of my favorite quotes is from Buzz from the Melvins, and he just said, like, I think I have great taste. So the music I write, you know, I think other people will like it too. And that's a great, like, simple way to just kind of go. That's a good philosophy to have, because, I mean, you don't want to become too cocky or anything like that. And like, every decision I make is great.
You're sounding a little bit cocky right now, buddy.
But I mean, more like in the sense that, like, I like a lot of great music from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I think that there's no way that that's not informing what I create. And same for all of us. And we all have those different influences that range from blues to metal to indie to everything, you know.
I just love the thing about Moontooth, where it's like my buddies that are super into like Converge and like Dying Fetus and Dillinger, you know, they love Moontooth and they come to all our shows. And then, like, you know, I have a friend that is super into like Panic at the Disco and Say Anything and Death Cab, and they can come to a Moontooth show and have just as much fun.
Yeah.
That's
great.
The word accessible is interesting, because when that gets thrown around, obviously your first thought is like, oh, you're talking about like hooks and things like that. But we've always been very accessible in the sense of, I remember like all these shows of like playing these death metal shows and having people come who like maybe they brought a friend or somebody or a significant other that like was not a metal fan. And especially the people who are just like, I don't like metal and like screaming and all this stuff. And they come to the show, and even if the guys are beating the fucking shit out of them with their riffs and their tones, there's smiles in the crowd, and people are dancing and laughing into. Yeah. And that's something we really pride ourselves on, is like, even from the early days, we've always been accessible in a way where just like, you're not a metalhead, come to a show. You'll have a good time. We'll make a fan out of you.
I think
even though we're a quote unquote metal band.
The friendship and the love and the love of what you guys are doing just shines through. But now the question is, what about the lifestyle of a musician and doing it? How do you balance music and whatever other obligations you have to do? I know I just saw you did the cruise. Yeah. Talk about that. Like, talk about the business side of all of this, not to get,
Yeah, I mean, that's the hardest part. I mean, especially now that we're all like pushing 30 or 30 and, and have hit that, that age where it's kind of like, wow, everybody I grew up with has like a career and a child and like is married and has a house, and I'm still like bouncing from one job to another.
You don't want to do that. You're doing the right thing.
I mean, I know that for myself, but it just becomes, it really just comes down to money. A lot of the time it's like, how are you going to support yourself? And we all live in Long Island, which is not a cheap place to live. And, especially if you want like a nicer place or a house or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I play in another band. That's why I did the metal cruise of the 70,000 tons of metal. And, being able to, it's interesting. It's been interesting for years now to be like, hey, I just got back from Japan, and then Moontooth's going out with this big band, do you want almond milk or regular milk? And just be like not taken, like treated like a child at my job every day. I've since like stopped working customer service. I still teach guitar, but it's like I'm always like right on the verge of having to just go get another one. Yeah, you know what I mean. So yeah, I mean, just accepting that you're gonna live those two lives, and that you're gonna sacrifice the comforts that other people have, but I mean, keeping in mind that they probably suffer endlessly in other ways, and it's not going to be that much better.
And boredom and monotony is
just not being unfulfilled.
Well, there's a couple things I want to say. Is one, on that note, like I remember talking to my parents recently about this, and like God bless, like all of our parents, our family, that have been so supportive. We really wouldn't have been able to do this without them. But and God bless them, mom and dad. They've really, like, over the past couple of years, one, I guess they've seen that this is starting to kind of turn into something. Yeah. And they've really laid off asking me about, like, are you going to try to get on full time anywhere, or how long are you going to give this or anything? But we were having a conversation the other day, and I was just saying, like, well, my sister and brother-in-law, like, we're trying to get a house. You know what I mean? Everybody my age who's having kids, and everybody's fucking struggling. Like, you can, I could hang it up, I could get a degree, and I could get a job and get a house, but like, that's not going to make my life any easier. Everybody's fucking struggling. It's just a matter of just like, if you're going to struggle, do you want to struggle and really not like what you're struggling for? Like, I'd rather struggle and be happy about it. Yeah. So that's kind of our mindset with it. And going a little bit further, like, what it does to your life, what Nick said, I totally agree with. It's absolutely the hardest part of all of this is making it work with everything financially, especially with relationships. The significant others have it the worst because they didn't ask for this shit, but they're stuck in it. You know what I mean?
They love you, so they put up with it.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, when you're going, especially in the early days, like your family, coworkers, so many people love to be like, oh, it's really hard in the music industry. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. Tell me more about this. It's difficult, huh? Because I thought, but it's like the big joke is like, yeah, it's difficult. And like, there's a sentence that's been said to me many times in the earlier years of just like, a lot of people have bands, but like not very few people make it. I'm like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah, most people's bands aren't as good as yours.
Well, yeah, in my head, that's what I'm thinking about. Yeah. But no, the thing that I think about is people love to tell you those things when you're going for something. This is just not just a band, anything, like especially in the art field, but anything you're trying to do. If you're trying to start a business of any kind, and people will tell you like, oh, it's kind of tough to do that. Yeah. But it's just like, yo, listen, I want to say to them, like, have you ever read a book? Have you ever seen a movie? Have you ever watched fucking Derek Jeter blast it out of the park? Okay, yeah. You ever see Muhammad Ali knock a motherfucker out? Like, how do you think they have like superpowers or something? Like, they're people. They had the will to do it. So you'll pay money to see these people hit a baseball out of the park, to see Captain America throw a fucking shield around. Tell me I won't give a spoiler.
Yeah,
Say I won't. No,
no
I'm just kidding.
Endgame spoilers.
Okay, I won't. But they'll pay money to see these ideas of greatness. But then when somebody in their backyard says like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be great too, and I am great, and I'm gonna be one of the greats," and they're like, "That doesn't happen. No one does that." It's just like, "Yo, you just saw Jimmy Buffett the other day." I don't know. I don't know why I said that.
Started from the bottom.
Yeah.
No, it's so true though. Like even with this whole thing, like I left school, I started this. Everybody's gonna tell you, "Oh, you're crazy. You're an idiot." All my friends were like, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" And then all of a sudden, people start listening. People start checking in, and then it's like, "Oh no, you did it right the whole time." You know,
that's all
honestly,
it takes is the will and getting past that idea of like, "Oh, I can't do that." It's about saying like, not only can I do that, like it's already done. I'm doing it, baby. And like going a little bit further, of all the people, all the many people who told all of us together separately, like, you know, it's really hard and you might want to think about having a plan B, and like, how long are you gonna put up with it, or how long are you gonna give it a go for till you hang it up or whatever. You know who hasn't told us that? People like Jesse Leach, Mark Morton, you know, these people that are in the industry, like these managers these A&R guys who have been in the game for like decades, like those people who are actually in the industry, they say like, one sentence that has actually been said to us a lot: keep doing what you're doing, you guys will make it. Like, so that's all. It's all about the will to fucking keep grinding. You know?
I think it all comes down to your support system and who you have around you. I know for me that there was like a point in my life where, you know, maybe I had, you know, some quote unquote friends that, you know, would only give you kind of like negative shit to say. You know, they only say things that, you know, weren't helpful, you know. So I think that if you surround yourself with the right people, good, genuine people that will build you up, it's only going to help you out, and the way you can like reflect onto them is you build them up too. So I know for me, like I live in a house with 3 of my best friends. Another one works in music, in a record label, my boy Tom, and then my other 2 boys, like they play in a hardcore band and they're trying to make their musical dreams happen. But it's super inspiring when you can wake up in the morning and you hear your roommate practicing guitar, or your other roommate, like our boy Tom, he's helping us out with our record, and he's always emailing, making phone calls for us. Like he's like the 5th band member behind the scenes. So, you know, it's all about who you surround yourself with, because if you surround yourself with people that are going to bring you up and support you, then you're going to keep going. And the people that aren't going to like be so supportive of you, then push them to the side, because they don't really matter anyway.
I will say, even if it's temporarily, I know for me, like when I left school and started doing the YouTube stuff, or even just the concept art stuff, I kind of shut myself away from people that were giving me negative feedback, even if some of them were my closest friends. And
some of it comes from your mom and dad sometimes, but you got to do what's best for yourself, you know?
Yeah. And one thing I noticed from the music side of things, because again, a lot of my audience is young artists that are aspiring to become professionals. I think one thing about musicians is they have like the opposite attitude of artists. Artists seem to exist in this state of perpetual self-doubt, whereas musicians are in this state of perpetual self-love, and they're just like, yeah, I'm the best. I'm like, my band's going to be the biggest thing ever. And I think whether or not there's any truth to that, which in your guys' case it is, I think something about that attitude of feeling like going into it knowing that you're going to succeed, I think that's the biggest difference. Like what you said, with anybody that's successful, they stuck to it.
What else could carry a person to victory other than certainty that like, I'm gonna do this? If you have doubt, you know, that's why like you hear so many of the greats and so many people who have been successful saying like, throw your plan B out the window, you know, cut your safety net, throw it in the trash. You know what I mean? Like you can't there's no half measures. You can't go into this you have to go full tilt. It's the only fucking way to do it.
I committed myself to the idea that like, I don't want this to take 20 more years, but if it takes 5 or 10 or 20, like it will get to where I want it to be at some point. And I don't know, like definitely what Vin's saying is true. And like without a good support network, it makes things almost impossibly hard, and definitely impossibly hard for a lot of people if they can't afford a van or even a fucking guitar or something, you know, to get started. But I mean, I think like for me, like even if this did all end, I would just have to pick up the next day and start a new band. You know, I realized when I got to college that this is all I want to do, and this is all I can do. Because like it was funny because I got A's in high school, and was on my way. I got money for music school and stuff, and I was like on my way to like do whatever I want with college. And as soon as I got there, I was like, fuck this. I was just like missing classes to like book shows in my car and my phone, and like just like making, you know, just missing school to sit home and work on music, and just in class, just like literally I have like saved some like writing out plans for the next few months, like not even, and it was just like, okay, this isn't for me, you know what I mean? Like I need to just not be doing this anymore. And that was like a really hard pill for, of course, like, you know, some of my family to swallow and
everybody
stuff.
in your life. But
it's funny because once the thing that changed it is when I got in this other band and I went to Europe, and then all of a sudden it was like just going once, all of a sudden like there was, oh, you did it. But it's like not really, like it's like I'm still broke and have like really no prospects of like being able to do normal life things.
Don't tell
like,
them that.
Yeah. But I mean, it is the reality of it. It's like I don't feel like I have a choice, and it's unfortunate for certain people that, you know, they just got the rough card of like having to like love me and be in my life, that they have to also embrace that like I have to do this thing, you know. I try to be a good person and responsible person as I'm doing it. But
I think right, even if it's right now, like 5 years from now, it's going to be the opposite, where, you know, then they're going to be coming to you and be like, oh, Nick, can I get some money? Can I get like it always works out that way.
I would be so excited.
That'd be a beautiful reality.
Yeah, I mean, like I've been with the same girl, like my girlfriend Liana. We've been together for over 5 years, and it's like, you know, I really look forward to the day where I can fly her to a festival and have her there, like whenever I want. But it's just not a reality. It's just like for either. I mean, you know, she's building her own business off the ground too, so she gets it. But you know, there's certain comforts that you just go, well, that's not going to be a part of my life, I guess.
It's not a sacrifice you have to make. It's
not to say you don't get any of it, but there's certain things that I think people take for granted that when you live this life, really become difficult. And you know, and to expect of another person in your life, where it's like everyone around me is doing this, getting this thing, or they're doing this with their lives, and we can't do that because you insist on following this dream. And obviously anybody who doesn't support you is not going to last, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, it can get difficult at times, but like anyone who really doesn't have your back they're not going to last anyway, because they're just eventually going to be like, I'm tired of this shit, you know? You just got home. You got to go out again for 3 months.
Yep.
You know, or you got to go out again for a month. You're going to miss my birthday. You're going to miss our anniversary. You're going to miss, you know, this holiday or that holiday. You're going to miss this party or that party. And, you know, you're going to go through all of that stuff. And
your friends will get mad at you if you miss, you know, a few events, but like, you know, you got to understand
you're going to lose contact with
Yeah.
Some people, not all together, but your relationships do suffer because you are a weird road person.
So this kind of like, this is a good segue into like, this is a lot of the album's material has to do with the sacrifice. It's interesting that you had asked that question about the personalized, because it really is, you know, the album being called Crux, it's being at the crux of these two different lives, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and trying to solidify this new life of just like, none of us have lofty dreams of having 5 cars or mansions or anything like that. We want to be able to take care of our families and not have the distraction of a day job that we're not passionate about, you know? So it's the idea of like getting past this crossroads to that life, and deals with the sacrifice, hardships, and heartbreak that comes with being devoted, staying, you know, getting past that crossroads. And it's this like, that's why the symbolism, it's all there's this X there, and it's like, it's getting to this checkpoint where life will check you. I mean, it has this whole time, like all the kind of bullshit that we were dealing with, talking about before. And so the album is really, it's about that. Like, you know, it was kind of, I think that's kind of like our whole, if we have like an ethos as a band, it's kind of this idea of like following your dreams and following that adventure. And with Chrome and Paragon, it was all fun and happy and like, it's gonna be great, we're gonna do this. And then Crux finds us years later just like, I'm so tired, I lost so much blood and relationships and just tears, and
but it made a better record.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it made a better record. And it's about like having that, like the joy, the jovial just like spirit is just eroded away, but the will's still there and it's still going. So that's like Crux in a nutshell.
Oh my God. I hate to cut you guys off, but that seems like the best place to end it, because that is a perfect message to end on. And I have this thing where I'm going to ruin it now. Whenever we're like we end on like a really nice note, I'm like, just leave it.
Yeah. No, that's the art of the interview, man.
Yeah.
You want to make good art, suffer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So check your prostate out, make sure to go.
Let's get back to important things.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. It's super inspiring. Where should people check you out?
Well, depending on when this comes out, we'll be out with Animals as Leaders and the Contortionists at the end of May. And then, moontooth.org, and we'll kind of connect you to everything. Couldn't get the .com. It's okay,
Find
though.
us at the merch store, bro.
Yes.
Yeah, keep buying shit, and that'll switch to a .com real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spotify, Bandcamp, all that stuff.
Yeah, all that. Anywhere you can find a band.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Thank you.
I absolutely love the music. Cheers.
Thank you for having us, man.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Let's drink this, what is it, Jack Daniels?
Special Jack.
To Moontooth.
Cheers.
Peace
Cheers,
out,
brother.
everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.